Should I continue to contribute into my RRSP even as I'm approaching retirement? This is a common question, and I've even had clients approach me and build a plan specifically just for this question. Recently, I actually had a client ask this during our financial values conversation, where we would spend most of the time in discovery and determining if it's a fit for us to work together. And his question was more specific to him. He asked me if it's worth contributing into his RRSP. And I jokingly I don't know why, but I just so jokingly responded that if that's all he needed to know, he didn't need to hire me. And I followed up by asking him, what would he do with the dollars instead? A big part of answering this is about that decision. If you stop contributing into the RRSP, would you invest it instead? Would you invest it in the TFSA? Would you put it in a non-registered account or just spend it in your day-to-day life and enjoy it now? If you have a plan and you're confident that you're certain that you no longer need the additional savings, then that's not an RRSP question. That's about knowing that you already have enough. If that's the case, by all means, you can stop saving into the RRSP or stop saving altogether and enjoy life now. That's what a financial plan will allow you to do. However, based on what I've come across, most of you don't have that. So I will urge you that this question could really only be answered thoroughly in your own situation by creating a plan. See, this question is typically tax driven. So I'll work through a case study here where you can get a better idea on how this may apply in the real world. So watch until the very end. But there's a few things that I need to make sure that we're on the same page on. Here are a few primers that I need to explain first. The RRSP has these key advantages. It gives you a tax deduction now that you can use whether this year, the year you contribute, or carry it forward later if it makes sense to do so based on your plan. The investments within the RRSP also grow tax-free, so it's not interrupted by taxation. It doesn't matter if it's interest, dividend, or capital gains, as long as it stays housed within the RRSP, it grows tax-free. You are not taxed until you make that withdrawal. So that makes this really powerful. You're deferring the taxes until much later. The RRSP, of course, is most beneficial when you make contributions while you are in a high marginal tax bracket and make withdrawals under a lower average tax rate. There is a difference here. Marginal tax rates is how you're taxed on the next dollar you earn, where the average tax rate is how much you paid in taxes after you've considered all of your income into account. I'll use my software here in the example, but to drive this point home, let's use a free online tax estimator. I'm using Ernst & Young. You can use whatever you have online if you wanted to check this number, because there's a lot of calculators out there. But the point of making this using a public tool is so that you can try this on your own situation. Let's look at the 2024 tax rates in the calculations here and compare that against the tax tables for 2024. Let's say you earned $120,000 and you live in Calgary, so we'll use Alberta-based numbers. Based on the 2024 tax tables, you'd be in the third tax bracket for Alberta, and that's 36% combined, federally and provincially. Your RRSP deductions are based on this tax bracket. So let's pretend you deposited $10,000 into an RRSP this year. You'd save $3,600 in taxes, but let's look at the effective tax rate based on this current year. A lot of people still get this wrong. The average tax rate is all of the taxes you paid compared to your income. Again, I'm using a free online calculator. There's many of them out there, but put the $120,000. Your estimated tax payable with just the basic credits is $29,438, which is 24.53% of your actual income, or this hypothetical person's actual income. That's a common misconception that I encounter. If your income stays the same while you're working and in your retirement, some people claim that the RRSPs are not worthwhile. That's just wrong. Because in this case, you can see that even if you earn the same income, because the RRSP withdrawals in the latter years is considered to be part of your overall income, you pay 24.53%. You get to keep that difference. Tax savings at 36 and that 24%, you get that 11% difference. That's not where this ends though. Here's a few other advantages to consider when you're trying to determine if it's worth investing in an RRSP 5 to 10 years before you pull the trigger on retirement. The first thing to consider is RRSPs can be converted into a RRIF even before you turn 72. RRIF income then qualifies for pension income splitting. This means sharing some of the tax burden between you and your spouse. So if the alternative is investing in a non-registered account, income from that account cannot be transferred to your partner. Giving your partner the funds and allowing them to invest in a non-registered account also triggers attribution. It's fancy talk for saying you still end up paying the taxes even if your partner owns the account. So if you're investing but you don't have a plan and you're just dumping money into your non-registered accounts, it may not make sense to do that. This now also brings up the value of a spousal RRSP. You don't have to contribute in your own RRSP alone. You can make a contribution that gives you the deduction against your taxable income now, and your partner will end up declaring that in their taxes when they make that withdrawal, as long as your partner does not make that RRSP withdrawal within 3 calendar years of your contribution. Otherwise, it's still you, the contributor, that gets taxed. But let's say you get past that. You're 55 now, and you and your spouse don't need to make any RRSP withdrawals or RRIF withdrawals until you're 65 years old. If that's the case, you're safe. You can also plan around this later. At the very latest, you can make contributions to your partner's spousal RRSP until you're 62 and not have to worry about any attributions, if that was your schedule. I'm using that as an example. So why is this so advantageous? Again, it's about income splitting. We already have a detailed case study here. Be sure to watch that. But this is significantly more powerful if your spouse has a lower guaranteed income than you. Let's say they were homemakers the whole time you were working and they don't have or no CPP income at all to be expected. This is an opportunity that equalizes this. Another easily forgotten benefit of the RRSP is the fact that it is creditor protected, unlike the non-registered account. There are also a lot of trends for seniors who are going back to school to finish that degree that they've always wanted to, even if they're in retirement. This is for personal development. If this is you, you may actually be able to take advantage of the Lifelong Learning Plan, or the LLP, from the RRSP. It allows you to withdraw funds from your RRSP or your spouse's RRSP for qualified educational programs. This doesn't come up very often, but it's something to consider if learning in your senior years is important to you. Now let's move on to our case study. Let's meet Hope and Geo. They're 55 now, and they won't retire until they're 65. They have $250,000 each in their RRSPs and $100,000 each in their TFSA. Hope makes $170,000 a year, and Geo earns $40,000, only working part-time so that they can care for their disabled son. They're mortgage-free. She'll likely get the CPP maximum based on the estimates. For him, he's going to get around 30% of the CPP maximum. They'll both get the full OAS because they've been residents in Canada for as long as they've been adults. Mortgage and debt-free. So let's look at their scenario as our baseline. This is what it would look like without any optimization, without adding any more income, without adding any more savings for the next 10 years. They can sustain an inflation-adjusted income of $71,769. If that's enough for them, that's really good. It's not a bad lifestyle, just under $6,000 a month. So going back, let's pretend that was the question, is it worth putting money into the RRSP? Well, if he doesn't need to, he can then decide, or if Hope doesn't need to add any more money into the RRSP, they can then decide to just spend that and live that right now. However, this is where I would push clients back that tell me that this is enough. Look at their lifestyle spend before retiring. They're projected to spend around $150,000 or about $12,500 monthly. All of a sudden, that drops to $6,000. That's too drastic of a drop if you're not easing into it. Thankfully, they don't actually spend that right now. However, money that's undirected finds its way to get spent. Hope and Geo actually only spend $8,000, and they expect to spend the same amount during their initial retirement years. So we created a plan where this income is maintained until they're 75 years old. We'll keep that constant and compare that with other scenarios. Remember, when I make these comparisons, the rates of returns their CPP uptake, all the other stuff is staying the same. The only difference is whether we save more money or not, and then when we decide, do we put that as a non-registered contribution first or an RRSP contribution first. In scenario 1, we only invest in non-registered accounts. In scenario 2, we prioritize the RRSP and invest the rest when the RRSP room is filled into the TFSA. If there's anything left after the TFSA has been contributed to, only then do we consider the non-registered accounts. This is actually now a good reminder that this is just for educational purposes only, to empower you, to educate you about how prioritizing account distributions and withdrawals can impact your retirement. Even if these scenarios may seem like it's similar to yours, this is not financial advice. I am a financial advisor, but I'm not your advisor. So this doesn't apply to you or anybody online in particular. In scenario 1, they're able to sustain an income of $87,707 after age 75. In scenario 2, they're able to sustain an income of $93,743 after tax, after inflation adjustments. It's the same income they're earning right now. It's the same investment returns right now. In this case, because we use the RRSP and we take advantage of the difference between the taxable income now, or the marginal tax rate now, and the taxable income later, there's a significant benefit to growing the RRSP for 10 years tax-free and getting the tax-preferred treatment for contributions and then deciding how we withdraw that later. They're significantly better off. The total lifetime tax for scenario 1 is $807,000. The total lifetime tax for scenario 2 is $808,192. So there's hardly a difference there, but consider that this is the tax after earning and spending more money. So not only is the income higher, the tax is actually slightly lower too. This all happens because of pension income splitting. Again, we have a video about that. You can watch that right now. But that's not where this ends. When we look at the estate values at life expectancy, the strategy where we use the non-registered account, they end up with $931,920 after tax for their estate. While when we use the RRSP focused strategy, they have $100,000 more to their beneficiaries. With this strategy, their ending estate is $1,030,000. The conclusion here is quite compelling. However, I hope walking you through just highlights how important planning is around your taxes, around your income, around your investments to allow you to maximize your retirement income so that you can spend more of it enjoying, living, and giving. If you want a second opinion on your retirement or just want free resources, go to retirementlaunch.com. I will see you in the next video. Bye.